Check 5678. Nine, 10, 11, 12. Thirteen, 14, 15. 16, 17, 18, 19. 20, 21, 22, 23. 24, 25, 26. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Check. Test 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9. 10, 11, 12. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Check 1, 2, 3.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can I get a shot of Binti?
Absolutely.
That's right, Binti.
Bindi.
I'll take it as a yes.
Binti? I couldn't resist it.
Call this meeting of the Board of Supervisors of May 14, 2013 to order. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson.
Present.
Supervisor Carroll. Here. Supervisor Elias.
Presente.
Supervisor Miller. Here. Chairman Valadez.
Present.
Let the record show all members are present.
Today's invocation will be offered by a friend of ours, Pastor Larry Munhia, also known as Larry McGee, and will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Miller. Pastor Munhia, would you please come up to the podium there? Please stand. Face the other way, Larry. The other way, the other side. Yes.
Boy, flashbacks, I'm sorry. Not guilty, I promise. Bow your heads if you're so inclined. Lord, we just thank you for this time that you've set aside for us to come together. And I just ask you that you would just settle our spirits down, that we would just focus on you. Lord, I ask you that you would just clear our hearts and clear our minds, that we would seek your will and seek your authority in all the decisions that are made here for our county and for our community. Lord, I ask you to take this time, Lord, in the city of Tucson and Pima County right now as our children are graduating from kindergarten all the way up into grad school, Lord, that you would protect them and keep them safe. Lord, I ask that the overwhelming presence would be known, that you would speak to their hearts, that they would know you, and that they would be about your business. In your name we pray, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have pause for pause, and today we have Officer Bowden with Bindi, who is a black and white German Shepherd mixed female of about 1 year and 2 months old.
Good morning. This is Bindi. Bindi was a stray dog that was found just pretty much in the center of town. She was found by one of our off-duty employees that was just riding their bike through the area. Came across her. She was sitting on an abandoned couch as if she was waiting for somebody. The employee left her be, figuring that maybe she was waiting for somebody. Went back the next 2 days, and she was still waiting. So finally, on the third day, when he went to check, at first he was nervous and said that she wasn't right there when he showed up. So he called out for her. He had been giving her treats. Called out for her. Her little head popped up from behind the couch, and she came running. So she took him, or that employee took her at that time and brought her to our shelter so that she could get off the street and hopefully look for a home where people would return for her. So Bindi's been guesstimated to be about a little over a year. She's full grown. She is most likely a German Shepherd mix of some sort, but as they all are, Sonoran purebred. She is very well-mannered. I noticed this morning when I came to get her out of her kennel, she'd been in the kennel all night long, as they all are, and her kennel was spotless. The moment we left the kennel, she immediately went to relieve herself, which is an indication that she is housebroken. When I walked her this morning, I stopped occasionally and asked her to sit for me. I'm not sure if she'll do it now. The crowd is a little bit intimidating for her, but she would sit, Bindi, sit, sit, sit. No, she's not going to do it just now. But she has done it, so she does have that skill. She's just going to be selective about when she shows it off. Bindi's been with us since the end of March, so her adoption rate is discounted. That means $15 for her license and $10 for her adoption, so $25 gets her out the door. That includes her to be spayed, for her microchip, and for her first round of shots. Also, I wanted to tell you all about, if this isn't the dog for you, or if you wait, we are having our monsoon muttness on Saturday from 10 until 7. So if you want to come on down to our Silver Bell location, there's going to be free food, music, prizes, and adoptions are all $12. The dogs will include, you'll need to also purchase the $15 license if they're over 3 months. But cats will be $12 each with no license required for a cat. So all animals $12 this weekend. Hopefully Bindi can get out of there before then because she has been waiting for so very long. But it is puppy and kitten season, so because of that, we do our monsoon muttness event every May about this time to help get some of these animals into homes quickly and free up some more space in our kennel. As always, if you don't have room in your home for an animal, if you have time to volunteer, that's wonderful. You can go to our website and sign up to contact our volunteer coordinator, and he can sign you up for our classes and get you going with the rest of the volunteers. They wear really, really cool turquoise shirts now. If you ever go in our shelter, you'll notice the volunteers buy their green or turquoise volunteer shirts. They're very cool. You get one when you volunteer. And if you don't have time to volunteer and don't have room for an animal in your home, of course, we always take donations. You can go to pima.gov/animalcare and check out our website. On the top right-hand side, there's the green donate bar. There's a cat and dog alternating with it. Click on that. Any amount is welcome. No amount's too small. No amount is ever too big. So please, if you have some extra money and you don't have time and you still want to help out, please, it only takes a few minutes to get online and send some money towards these animals that are in need. It is the only, shelter that is non-discriminatory in town. We take everything. Many other shelters, they have the discretion to turn away things at the door. We don't turn away anything. Anything and everything is allowed into our shelter. We do our best to rescue what we can and put everything that is eligible up for adoption, and there is no time limit. Used to be there was a deadline. If they didn't get adopted by day 4, 5, 6, whatever, people still have that notion that we have a timeline, and if they don't get adopted by a certain date, that's the end. It's not. Our animals, will hold on to them for as long as it takes. After they've been there for quite some time, like Bindi, we start to promote them in extra special ways. Dogs like her, there's no reason she's getting passed up other than most likely she's just an ordinary brown dog, and they're a dime a dozen, and they just don't stand out as much. So anyways, if you know somebody that's interested in a dog like Bindi, she'll be there. You can come down between noon and 7 on weekdays, 10 to 5 on weekends. And, of course, this Saturday, please join us. Free food, music, and lots of pets and lots of fun. So 10 to 7 on Saturday, 4000 North Silver Bell Road. You're all welcome.
And did you want to talk about monsoon muttness?
That's the Saturday's
Okay.
event. So, yeah, please come on down for that. You can go on our website for additional information.
All right, Supervisor Elias.
Well, I was just going to say that we have Tucson Youth Development in the house today, and we're pleased to have you here, and we're going to do that proclamation in a minute. But if there's any of your staff or any of the kids who want a dog that's a nice dog, and she's a really sweet dog, we could make that whole proclamation thing easier. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
Well, Larry already told me if I said anything about him.
I can verify he does have 2 dogs. Oh, 3?
But if there's anybody over there at TYD who wants a dog, refer them over, and District 5 will be glad to pay the freight. All right, to try and help them out, because I think a dog pets are part of being healthy all the way around. So
Well, I'm happy to announce actually there's somebody on the 10th floor who's interested in adopting Bindi, and it's Mara, Chuck's assistant.
TYD, though, even if this dog gets adopted by one of our staff, if they come down and want to pick out another dog, that will be okay with me, okay?
Yes, and last week's dog is still waiting, and he's already footed the bill for that one, so you
Yeah,
can come on
that's
down
right.
and
So I
check
got
that
2
one
in
out,
the
too.
queue if anybody wants to hurry up,
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, and thank you, Mara, for adopting Bindi. We have a couple presentations. The first one is item number 5, Public Works Week. There's a motion and a second to approve item number 5. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Supervisor Miller. And is Nancy Cole here? Please come up to the podium.
Russell brought Soto. He works for transportation and operations, and he is on our board of directors.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so.
Whereas the proclamation, whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the planning, programming, construction, and efficient operation of public works systems such as sanitary sewers, streets and highways, flood control facilities, environmental protection, open space conservation, historic sites and working landscapes preservation, natural and cultural resource conservation, parks and rec opportunities, buildings and solid waste management, and whereas the whereas the health, safety, and quality of life of this county, and the communities depend daily on careful planning and execution of these facilities and services, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is material influenced by the people's appreciation for and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now therefore be it known that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the week of May 19th to May 25th, 2013 as Public Works Week in Pima County, Arizona, and urge all our citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works employees and officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Passed and adopted this 14th day of May, 2013. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank you, the Board of Supervisors, and the rest of Pima County for realizing the importance of public works employees, and what we can bring to your community every day. And we hope that we are making an impact and look forward to celebrating this week with you. Thanks again.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Congratulations, Supervisor Elias.
Before everybody goes and sits down, I'd just like to add to this conversation that our public works folks are very vital to all our operations, and we need them all. And the reason I say we need them all is because they're the ones who are out there in the streets many times as you're driving through construction projects. Joe, his folks are out there. Please be safe when you drive through there. Think about the fact that all those folks out there on the work site want to go home to their families that night. And it's an important issue. It happens far too often that people are injured or killed in construction sites. So again, please be careful as you're driving through there. If you have children in your family that are learning how to drive, teach them from day one that they need to be extra careful in construction sites and be extra thoughtful of the human beings that work out there, because they got family just like all of us. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. We do have one more presentation. It's Vida Sana Healthy Life Day.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the item. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it, and Supervisor Elias will make the presentation. Arnold Lidia, please come up, and he will do it in Spanish.
Over here on this side. And I'm going to give this to her to hold because she's much nicer than you. You come over here on this. You come over here. You get over here. You know, the third annual Vida Sana event was held just a week ago over here at Tucson Youth Development. It was a great event. Kids were excited and out there doing a walk, and a lot of good vendors were there. And they had this pot of vegetarian pozole, which I did taste, and it was very good, I must tell you. And Arnold can get you the recipe. Maybe you should put it up on the TYD website so that we all have access to it, because it was really actually very good and very healthy. So that was important to the folks that were there that morning. Tucson Youth Development is important to all of us. Whereas on May 4, 2013, Tucson Youth Development and Reactivate, New and Used Activewear, hosted the third annual Cinco de Mayo Vida Sana Healthy Life Celebration. Whereas the focus of the event was to bring health and wellness awareness and information directly to at-risk youth and their families while maintaining valuable traditions and culture. And whereas many of today's youth benefit greatly from information and resources to live healthy lifestyles. And whereas the primary goal of Vida Sana celebration is to provide relevant informational and interactive activities in nutrition, fitness, and overall health with achievable steps towards healthy lifestyle. And whereas since its founding in 1965, Tucson Youth Development has helped more than 45,000 low-income and at-risk youths aged 14 to 21 and young adults in Pima County with innovative and successful educational, job training, and employment programs. And whereas for the third year, Tucson Youth Development and Reactivate New and Used Activewear have partnered to plan this event, which ensures that youth are being provided with reachable steps towards healthy living. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby declares May 4th, 2013 to be Vida Sana Healthy Life Day. Congratulations. Let's give them a nice round of applause. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words? Yeah, please do.
Thank you for this proclamation, and next year, for a healthy Cinco de Mayo alternative, we're inviting you all to join us. Okay.
Yes, and I just want to thank Arnold and Tucson Youth Development and Richard Elias for all the wonderful support in our community and really working hard to fight obesity and this epidemic that we have in our community and get people on the right track to an active living lifestyle. Thank you.
Be on sale today. No, I'm just, what did she say?
Thank you. We do have one change to the executive or to the agenda. It is on the addendum, page 1, item 3, the executive session item. The staff requests that the item be removed from the agenda, so that leaves us with no executive session. So we'll go ahead and move into Board of Supervisors sitting as other boards, Flood Control District Board, Riparian Habitat Mitigation Plan, item number 6.
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and move that item.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the item. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Board of Supervisors sitting in regular session. Consent calendar. Do we have any cards? We do not have any cards on consent calendar. Is anyone here who would like to address the board at consent calendar item only?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Miller.
I'd like to poll and vote separately on item 6 on the consent calendar.
The award. Okay. Do you have any questions on there, or would you just like vote separately?
I have some questions, and yes.
Please proceed.
Okay. What I note on here is that this $994,000 is to the low bidder, and it is for a transportation enhancement project. And again, I see that we're using 10% of county HERF funds, which is amounts to about $99,000 in the background material. And my question is, why wouldn't we be using some of the transportation improvement funds, since this is an enhancement? The HERF funds, my understanding, are strictly for road repair, and that we have this money for capacity improvements and enhancements in the transportation improvement funding. It's on page 12 of the May 7th report that Mr. Huckleberry put out. It shows there's $2.5 million in the Tucson Mountain District, which is where this is located, Homer Davis Elementary School. So instead of using county HERF, which is repair money, to match the federal funding that we get, I recommend that we use the transportation improvement funds instead. Is that a possibility?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Huckleberry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, I think what you're referencing is transportation impact fees.
Right,
Not
impact fees.
Impact fees.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the issue is I think that I'm pretty much positive state law would prohibit that. State law requires that transportation impact fees be spent for capacity improvements or capacity improvements related to the impacts of new growth and development. So it's just not possible.
So this is not a capacity improvement?
No, this is a safety improvement in front of an elementary school.
Okay, okay. Then I withdraw, my motion to change that, so.
Chuck, just for clarity's sake, Supervisor Miller said that her funds are to be used for maintaining roads only. Isn't that incorrect, sir? In fact, don't her funds have multiple uses that are allowable under state law?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Elias, her funds are the basic funding for the Department of Transportation.
Correct.
And so what it does do is it finances everything, meaning their personnel expenses, their operating expenses, if we have enough capital improvements and maintenance. And so it is the primary source of revenue for the Department of Transportation, and it is not specifically limited to any particular category, but it does have to be spent for transportation purposes.
I just thought that would help the members. Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to clarify that any of the other funds that we have are not able to be used for road repairs. The only money we can use for road repairs comes from the HERF, correct?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, yes, except that for the last few years we've actually been supplementing the HERF funds with general funds of the county.
Okay.
I was going to
Thank
say
you.
there's a number of different types of funds that we can use to do road repair. We're not limited to any single one. So, yeah, I just, well, hopefully that'll help clarify things.
All right, any other questions on the consent calendar?
Mr. Chairman, if the supervisor has withdrawn her
She has.
request, then I will move the consent in its entirety.
Second.
Motion to approve and the second to approve consent in its entirety. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item number 9, Mr. Huckleberry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is actually probably a good place to start talking about transportation and all of the options that are out there. I have basically provided a very lengthy report to the board back in the first week in April and said that we would have a public hearing on this report at a later date to talk about the specific recommendations. In essence, as we all know, transportation revenues have been declining over the years for a variety of reasons, and that the demands on our system are actually increasing. And what's new about this particular report is that it details by district and by road the actual long-term obligations of the county with respect to pavement preservation and repair in the unincorporated area. And the total price tag on that is fairly significant. It's actually $268 million, which is clearly beyond our capabilities to fund and to make significant inroads at actually getting our system back up to reasonable repair standards. Just last year, the board authorized, and we've spent $20 million from a variety of sources that the board authorized in the previous fiscal year. $10 million of the ending fund balance, $5 million of the general fund recurring, and another $5 million of the HERF revenue ending fund balance. And so we've made, obviously, when we make a $20 million annual investment and only can accomplish 8% of the obligations, we continue to have issues and problems. What I've done is simply, and it's important for the board to understand that while we're all frustrated about transportation revenues, there's little that the board in its capacity can do to raise those revenues except raise local taxes. And that's probably not the most effective and most efficient way to do it. And that's why, I've made some recommendations that might not sit well with some people, because it really talks about raising gas taxes. And anytime you talk about raising taxes, the hair on the back of people's necks stand up. And so what I've indicated is that, putting things in perspective, the price of fuel when the gas tax was last raised in Arizona, and that was 1991, was 77 cents a gallon. and we had an 18-cent gas tax, and so that's 26% of the price of fuel. Today, the average price of fuel is $3.41, and that same 18-cent gas tax is only 5% of the cost of fuel. So we can work around the edges of this problem, and so all we can do is put Band-Aids on things for the next probably couple of years until we want to confront our problems straightforwardly. I provided the board yesterday with a supplemental memorandum because I kept hearing a lot of things that were what I call gross exaggerations or just simply misinformation with regard to transportation and the investments the board's made. I frankly think the board has done a fabulous job at meeting the transportation needs in a very constrained environment, meaning we don't have a lot of flexibility. When I heard that we are only spending $5 million on transportation out of a $1.2 billion budget, that became a little bit concerning. And what we really need to understand is that $5 million is a supplement that I've recommended in this year's budget, and that we annually spend about $50 million, and that's the aggregate budget of the Department of Transportation, made up largely of the HERF revenues and vehicle license tax and transportation-related taxes. In addition to that, our concentration of transportation investment for the last 20 years has really been in new capacity improvements. And that's because in the previous 20 years, we were shortchanged by the state in the distribution of HERF. It was distributed on a basis solely of origin of fuel sales, and Maricopa County, who had 1/3 the population in the unincorporated area, got 3 times as much money as Pima County. And so we were able to make inroads and get HERF equity in 1996, where for the very first time we introduced into the distribution formula 50% unincorporated population. Begin to give us some parity in the distribution of HERF revenues. We then said we're so far behind in capacity improvements in this region, we need to bond that. Well, we bonded it, but we forgot that the election was a county-wide election where everybody gets to vote, even though county HERF revenues are designated for the unincorporated area. And so we made a commitment to share our revenues with the city of Tucson out of a comment by the mayor, who said that unless he sees certain significant investments in the city, he would be inclined to recommend that his voters not approve the bond election. So we basically included those improvements. When you then look at the last 5 years, just the last 5 years, we've spent about $289 million on capacity improvements, and that's from a variety of revenue sources, HERF bonds, federal funds, RTA funds, anything we can get our hands on. And so I think we've done a good job of basically scrounging and getting every dollar we can. Doesn't mean we can't do better, but we've done fine, as opposed to what some people have insinuated, that we haven't done anything in transportation. The recommendations I made to you are kind of, they're ones you got to think long and hard about, and I fully have a realistic vision of our capacity to cause change, and I don't think we're going to get the Arizona legislature this session voting on a 10-cent gas tax increase, but I think the conversation has to start. And I think we have to be realistic enough to understand that we really have to solve our own problems. And this is a statewide problem. It's not isolated to Pima County or the city of Tucson. It is basically embedded in every city and town in Arizona and every county in Arizona. And the state transportation department has finally, cracked under the stress of HERF diversions, where they've actually had to alter their program and push projects back because the state legislature diverted HERF revenues. Obviously, they're under the executive branch in the state and can't say much. But the cities and towns, if you just look at the diversions of HERF that have occurred in the last 10 years, money that we previously had spent in transportation, repair, and maintenance, it's been $39.2 million of diverted monies. If you add the diverted monies of every city and town, including Tucson and Sahuarita and Oro Valley and Marana, you would be well over $100 million of diverted monies that would have gone into and should have gone into highway maintenance. So I think, you know, the combination of recommendations I've made to you are serious. Some will be successful, some won't. It's not going to solve the problem overnight, but it's a good start, and we have to basically, I think, look at our problems realistically and not, you know, blame it on the other guy or think that somebody else is taking all our money. With one exception, the state legislature, that's not true. So I think, you know, the recommendations I made to you are ones that I would ask that the board endorse, and so that we can begin to take the next policy steps as directed by this board to talk seriously about transportation finance.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Huckleberry. Mr. Huckleberry, I've read over your report, the supplemental piece as well, but the interest I have is how's the coalition building coming for your people that work our legislative body? And number two, how's County Supervisor Association of Arizona reacted? Have they seen the memo? I know you want to cast a wide net. I've had some suggestions from people that have called my office saying that other best practices in transportation departments around the United States have in fact been like the bus wraps that you see around town, have been selling advertising all the way to try to supplement their transportation costs and road repair monies. What other ideas have you heard, and what ideas are you interested in including? If the CSA is not on board, I think it'd be a great idea if we tried to get them on board. They represent the 14 other counties, and
Yes.
they do so well in lobbying at the legislature. So please let me know.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Carroll. Just the fact that we raised the issue that the 1 cent diversion of the gas tax to the underground storage program was expiring has basically got people at the legislature really aware of the issue now. And so I think they were going to let that bill expire without, you know, any real comment until I think we finally spoke up and said, you ought not do that. And so it's moving, but it's going to take a while. I think the other thing is that CSA and the County Supervisors Association, we've historically looked at these issues, and Pima County, because of our large unincorporated area population. We have the largest unincorporated population in Arizona of any county by a factor of 2 to 3. And so therefore we're always on the leading edge of policy discussions with regard to meeting the needs of our unincorporated areas. And so I think we're kind of probably the leaders on that discussion. And I don't think that discussion is caught up with the rest of counties in Arizona, although they're beginning to all feel the pinch, and probably Pinal County more than anybody else.
Mr. Chairman?
Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman, pardon me, excuse me, if I could continue. I had a follow-up question. I have the floor. Mr. Huckleberry, when it comes to the CSA, are you prepared to forward this report, or how soon do you feel it would be ready to go up and make a presentation to the counties that would be interested, especially the rural counties that have just as many voting senators and House members as do the large urban counties?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Carroll, we will make that presentation as soon as the board authorizes it. And so, again, this is a policy document. It's something that obviously is going to require, before we do anything, the board's concurrence.
Okay, and when I ask you that, I also ask, who do you see as the opposition to your plan of possibly raising, whether it's a gas tax or whether it's keeping intact the 1% that's for leaking underground storage tanks, or any of the other ideas that you had in your memo and your follow-up supplemental information?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Carroll, I don't know if we really know who would be opposing with regard to the 1 cent with regard to underground storage tanks. We know that potentially the environmental community may want to see that money continue to go in that particular program. We really don't know the status of it, other than it's been around 20 years, and we would assume that most everything has been cleaned up or fixed, and that the orphan sites should have been taken care of, and the only sites that remain have really corporate structure that can't afford to pay for it. So that would be probably the only area of concern there. And I think that's just the general reluctance, because it takes a 2/3 majority to get a tax through in Arizona by the legislature. You're going to have a lot of people who have pledged not to raise taxes that aren't going to support it.
Well, I think it's a separate category of tax when you're talking about a revenue stream that's earmarked for a specific use versus, let's say, ordinary sales taxes that go into a general fund. But thank you for the help. I understand that with the legislature wrapping up, hopefully, with them on limited per diem and other incentives to close down, the governor putting pressure, that it's probably too late. Maybe, I wouldn't want to say that you don't have an open door still, but I appreciate getting the information from you as soon as possible as to when you're going to plan on going to CSA, so we can be aware of your efforts and see if there's any categories of this plan that we feel inclined to lobby for. Thank you.
Supervisor Miller.
I have a question for Mr. Huckleberry on his memo that he sent out yesterday regarding the $50 million that we spend annually. It was my understanding that $5 million was going to pavement preservation. However, you have $50 million. Is that $50 million all going to be road repairs? Are we going to repair roads, or is that for salaries and overhead for the Department of Transportation?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, it's for a variety of purposes and sources. For the salaries and the equipment and the operating and maintenance cost, and for debt service for the highway user revenue bonds that have been authorized already. About $17 million will go into debt service. 12 or 13 million, I believe, is in salaries and cost to operate the department. In addition, there's always been an allocation for maintenance, and that allocation will remain the same, but it will be supplemented with the $5 million that's coming from the general fund.
So my understanding is that we have the $30 million, the $17 million for debt service, $13 million for salaries, and the $30 million will be in addition to the $5 million will be going to actual road repairs, pavement preservation projects.
It's Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, it's a variety of sources. We can break it down by category, and I don't believe it's $30 million for road repairs. It depends upon how you classify road repairs. If you put our operations and maintenance division salaries into that, then probably yes. So, what we can do is do a line item breakdown of the Department of Transportation's budget and get that to you, because a portion of it goes to even County HERF, goes to supplement some of the capital program that is continuing to implement the bond program.
So, okay, so what I'd like to see is a schedule of just how many miles of pavement preservation we plan to do next year, and that'll make it very clear because it's $213,000 per mile per year schedule, so we can figure out how many miles and how much money is actually going to be spent. That's the data that I would like to see, so that we know exactly and we can tell people exactly what we're spending, because there's numbers being thrown out all over the place, and the $5 million was my understanding from my discussions with Priscilla, that's what was going to be spent on road repair. Now I'm hearing that there's additional monies for that, so I want to make sure that I'm clear when I explain to people exactly how many miles of road repairs we're going to be able to do next year. And maybe that's where the confusion lies, in that we don't have a schedule of that, so I'd really appreciate that. In addition, regarding the 10-cent a gallon gas tax, that one really concerns me, because one of the things that you identified in your report was that the reason that people stopped driving was because of the price of gas increasing. And if we increased gas taxes 10 cents a gallon, we're going to hurt the people that can least afford it, the people who drive to work every day that don't have electric cars, that don't have hybrid cars, the people making $15 an hour that come to work at the county that can't afford to buy an electric car. So that's my real concern with that recommendation. And some of the others I'm okay with, but I think a gas tax increase is going to have a very negative effect. I think as it proved in the past, as the gas prices rose, people drove less. and so we ended up with less HERF money. I know it's a quandary, and I know it's, you know, something that we have to solve, and I think a lot of these recommendations are good. They need to be studied, but the gas tax increase is a real concern to me. Thank you.
Other questions? I do have 2 speakers.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Huckleberry?
Yes, just a couple clarifications for the board and Supervisor Miller. The $5 million is general fund, and yes, it's earmarked for pavement preservation and repair. And there, as you looked at the report, there were a variety of costs per mile depending upon the particular road selected. And so they're not all 213,000. There's a cheaper, if you do this, there's another amount, there's another amount. And so it's this, you got to pick this mix of streets and highways in which to spend that money. My guess is, in addition to that, probably no more than about another $2 million was just what was typically average annually spent on pavement preservation, so we can get you that. So it brings maybe the total to $7 or $8 million if this $5 million is approved by the board. And the specific roads and will be then obviously something that the board gets to decide in the budget process as we move forward and allocate that money. So I think you know, it could be X miles of road if you pick this strategy and these number of roads that require a certain type of repair. It could be an entirely different length of road if you pick another group of roads that have a different repair requirement. So that's kind of that point. I think on the gas tax increase, one of the things I think we'll see is between now and Memorial Day, I'll bet the price of gasoline goes up 10 cents a gallon.
Mr. Chairman, I had one more comment on that, is that, you know, the various road repairs, 72% of the roads in District 1 are in failed to poor. So that's the 213,000 is for roads that are in failed to poor condition, and 61% of the roads in Pima County overall are in failed to poor condition. I was assuming that we would look at those roads first, but because these roads that are in failed to poor condition are a safety hazard, so that's why I made the assumption that we would attack those first and try to repair those so that people aren't driving on unsafe roads, children aren't riding bicycles on roads that are falling apart, our first responders aren't riding on roads that are falling apart. So that was why I made that assumption. When we have 61% in failed to poor condition, I don't know why we wouldn't look at those first, but if anybody has any, Priscilla, do you have a comment on that? Why we wouldn't be looking at those first and going to some of the other less important repairs that we have to do?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Miller, we were been looking and considering and developing a program to be presented to the board in terms of the $5 million that we have for the next fiscal year. And in some ways we're torn. Do you do like a minor seal coat at $15,000 a mile, or do you do the total overlay and mill and replace for $213? You know, $213,000 a mile. What we had been sort of thinking about is doing pavement preservation to treat roads before they fall into the failed category. Because we do have such a large number of roads in poor or failed condition that we can barely touch them. As you've sort of said, that we spend $5 million and we're only doing less than 100 miles of roads. But that is something we can provide that to the board in terms of what are the options that we have with the $5 million.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Elias.
If I understand correctly, the dollars that were approved, or the tax rate that was approved for that gasoline tax back in, was it 1991, is worth 51 cents on the dollar today? Is that correct? So that's a drastic change over that 20-some year period, and it's unfortunate. I think Supervisor Miller used a good word when she said quandary. It is a difficult situation. And the residents of District 5 are in that same quandary, and they pay the same rate of taxes on their homes as anyone living up in District 1. So I would suggest to you that those dollars need to be equally used across every single district, despite the jurisdiction that they exist in, since all those people are paying their taxes exactly the same as everyone else. Leaving District 5 off the table because 90% of it is in the city of Tucson is wrong. So I'm afraid that that money really needs to be distributed across the board equally to make sure that all our taxpayers get their bang for the buck. We have a huge amount of roads in District 5 that are in failed conditions as well that need to be repaired. We're not going to make it to all of those. I understand that. We're not going to make it to all the roads in District 1, 2. I just want to make it clear that District 5 is going to be treated fairly with general fund dollars that are spent on road repair. Thank you.
To that point, Supervisor Miller?
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't making any suggestion that all of the money go to District 1. I was talking about
I know
Pima
you weren't
County
making that
in
suggestion.
general.
I just wanted to make myself clear.
Please.
Please let me finish. What I was talking about is 61% of the roads in the county overall are failed and 72% in District 1. And I wasn't asking that all of the money be spent in District 1. I was just trying to clarify the point with Priscilla as to how they're going to prioritize the roads. So I'd just like to make sure that people understand that I'm not asking all the money go to District 1. This is a very difficult situation. I think we all understand that. It's going to be tough to solve. And we have to work at it together. And I think I like the fact that we're getting some general fund money. I would like to see more, but I also understand we're in difficult times. So we need to look for monies anywhere we can, how to save money, ways to save money, and to be able to fund our roads as much as we can in a very difficult situation. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I just think we got a lot of clarifying to do on this board lately, so I'm just helping along the clarification process.
Thank you.
Mr. Huckleberry, I believe you had a comment?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that, obviously the distribution of those funds are going to be up to the board, but you could spend $5 million in any one district and still not scratch the problem.
All right.
Could I add one more thing to this thing as I was thinking about too, and I'm really glad to hear Supervisor Miller saying that she's willing to consider any of the options that we have out there to continue on this pathway, because that's the kind of spirit it's going to take to get this problem under control here in the state of Arizona, not just here in Pima County.
All right, I have two speakers. Let me just remind you all that you'll have 3 minutes. Let me call Ramon Ganders, otherwise known as the other Ramon. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
The real Ramon. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Again, my name is Ramon Ganders. I represent the Tucson Utility Contractors Association. For those who don't know, about 100 members who primarily do 90% road construction, dirt, earth moving, and we represent tens of thousands of jobs here in Pima County alone. And I think, for one, I want to comment and commend the board for bringing the topic forward, because I think having the discussion about road maintenance and anything to deal with roads is important, not only just for the safety of people, the commerce issue, of course, jobs, but also because we're in some very tough financial situations on how to get all this taken care of. I also want to thank the staff for their hard work as well to make this issue what it is today. And certainly $5 million is never enough, and we've always want more. But we do have a problem, not just in Pima County, but across the state and across the country. And I should say that I forgot to bring a couple of things with me today. They're left in my car right now in the parking lot, but I will get them. One is a letter that was sent to the legislature back in March asking them to stop making sweeps about the HERF. And the other piece was from the American Road and Transportation Builders Association that focuses on transportation alone out in Washington, that did a study across all the different states and what they're doing differently, whether they're increasing sales tax and getting rid of gas taxes or a combination of both. Ohio was the last state that did some significant changes to their state about having to fund transportation infrastructure. Looking at the memorandum A through F, certainly TUCA supports A and B. I think it's important to know on B, the state as a whole is $1.6 billion in the hole from the sweeps that have taken from HERF. That equates to about 124,000 jobs in our industry. So that's very, very important. Looking at C and D, and TUCA has not taken an actual position, but I think anything when we talk about making recommendations to the state legislature, we ask about putting firewalls or parameters because we know that the legislature will take from one pocket to the other to fund what they need. So I think you make sure that if any recommendations go up there, that you do that. Because we've had numerous conversations with them, and I know they keep hearing it, but they need to keep hearing that. Looking at E, I don't know if there's a $500 million is the right amount. I know there's a process. We've done that through the RTA. I certainly support trusting that process and looking at how much road maintenance dollars we need. I'm not saying that the number is too high or too low, but I think it's important that we do go through a process. I think that's pretty much it for my comments. Certainly, TUC is here to be used as an asset for our community, specifically when it gets to road and transportation. So please feel free to give me a call at any point.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ganders? Thank you, gentlemen. Next, I'd like to call Jerry Arabani. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman and Board of Supervisors. My name is Jerry Arabani, and I live in Oro Valley. Okay, what I would like to discuss this morning is the gas tax. I had the pleasure last week of speaking with some lovely people representing the Pima County employees who wanted a 5% raise instead of a 3% raise. I will presume that most of the employees do not live downtown, and the gas increase will definitely decrease their income on a monthly basis. I just am sure that the budget, when they review the budget, I'm sure that you'll be able to make some adjustments so that no gas tax would be required. And I'm sorry that the study that Mr. Huckleberry mentioned was not able to be an open scenario. And I just was kind of interested to know why Oro Valley and Marana don't seem to have trouble with their roads. They seem to keep the roads. I don't know how they're keeping the roads up to date. Marana and Pima County is not. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Elias.
I'll move items 9A through F.
If I may add a friendly amendment.
Certainly.
That I'd like to see direct staff to prepare a resolution that includes the restoration of the HERF funds to Pima County, the 1 cent sales tax or the 1 cent gasoline tax moved over from underground storage tanks to HERF, as well as a 10-cent increase in the sales tax as the first item for the agenda next week.
I accept that.
Does the seconder agree? Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Carroll.
Mr. Chairman, as mentioned by Ramon Ganders from Tucson Underground Contractors Association, there's a report that I'm sure he will supply to us. Can I add that if there's any other additional ideas that come out of that report or any of the other things that were mentioned at this hearing to increase the possibility of getting some return from the legislature, it would be something that I would support. I think that Mr. Huckleberry realizes that no matter how wide of a net you cast, there's not going to be 100% agreement from the legislative body or the governor to provide these revenue stream for transportation as we need them. So thank you very much, and if you could add that.
So in other words, or any other mechanism that increases funding for road preservation. Is that okay with the maker?
You know, I think that comes under the realm of direction to staff, and I think it's perfectly appropriate and a good idea that Supervisor Carroll has come up with. I don't know that it needs to be made a part of the motion, but it would make good sense if there's any additional stuff in there that we can include in that resolution, because certainly that's the spirit and the intent of this item. So thank you, Supervisor Carroll, and I think that staff hears that loud and clear, right? Thank you.
Supervisor Brownson.
Yeah, I would just say that, looking at the report in items A through F, these are really starting parts for the conversation. The conversation needs to begin, and if we don't have the courage to start that conversation, we're never going to solve the problem.
Other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, the motion before us is on the adoption of item number 9A through F, as well as the resolution as discussed and directed staff to prepare for first item next agenda. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Carroll?
Aye.
Supervisor Elias?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Chairman Valadez?
Aye. By your vote of 4-1, motion carries. Moving on to item number 10, abatement of interest and penalties. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the item.
Second. We should probably comment on this too, just a little bit, that the actual amount of interest and penalties on this particularly property exceeds the value of this property. That's why we're taking this rather extreme action to try and get this property moving and back on the tax rolls in a productive way.
I believe our treasurer is here. Would you like to say a few words, or would you like?
No.
Okay. The motion before us is to approve item number 10. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Congratulations. Moving on to item number 10, master plan under natural resources, parks and recreation.
Mr. Chairman, I will move that item, and we've missed Mary Henderson over the last few years, and I know this is something she wanted to happen, and so it's with pleasure that I move the item.
Second.
Motion, a second to approve item number 11. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Real property, item number 12, relocation assistance rules and regulations, and resolution number 2013-35. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Elias.
I'm going to go ahead and move item 12, including resolution number 2013-35.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 12 and resolution number 2013-35. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to hearings, Board of Supervisors Appeal Review Officer's decision. This is a new process, so Council, I believe you had some comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is an appeal concerning the classification of residential property under ARS 42-12054. The legislature has delegated this matter to the Board of Supervisors, and by Board of Supervisors Policy D22.10, the board has in turn delegated this hearing to the Finance and Risk Management Director, with the condition that either party can appeal his decision to the board. In this case, Mr. Burke has heard this matter. His report, in this case, it's in your backup materials. The assessor in this case has appealed Mr. Burke's decision to the board. This is a rather new process, and it puts the county attorney's office in an odd role here as well, too, as we provide advice both to the assessor and to the board from time to time. On agreement of both the board and the assessor, I will be providing advice only as to procedural matters in this case. The substantive matters, the parties themselves will be providing their arguments to the board. We have not provided any advice to Mr. Staples on this other than what we've already advised the board with respect to not entertaining ex parte communications with the board members, since you do sit as a quasi-judicial body. Just think of yourselves as doing these matters similar to zoning enforcement hearings.
So let me see if I understand you. You can't have ex parte communication. So if any of us, I don't know that we have, if we've actually had communication with the individual, one of the appealed, we then have to recuse ourselves?
I don't think necessarily, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Bronson, that necessarily has to occur. You should just disclose to the rest of the board members what has been disclosed.
Okay.
And Council, it's either the two parties.
Yeah, that is correct. Either party with respect to this. Just think of yourselves as Superior Court judges. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on legal proceeding questions?
Rather not.
Okay. I know that Mr. Staples is here. I can see him there at the end of the dais. Is the other party here as well? Because I think there may have been a notification issue.
Yeah, it's represented by Mr. Losi. And
is Mr. Losi present? I don't see him. I would suggest that we continue it because there may have been a notification issue.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Carroll.
this item's continued. You would suggest that we have no communication with the applicant here, the
Or the
appellant,
assessor.
or the assessor on this item, whether it's item 16 or 17, correct?
No.
Which one?
No,
are we
it's
on?
item 13.
13. This is the review of
Yeah.
legal class, okay. What's the name of the appellant in that one?
Kit 1 LLC.
What is it?
Kit 1 LLC.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the board,
Counsel?
I did have a concern with respect to this, and I apologize to the clerk as well, too. I had received a rather odd letter from Mr. Losi indicating that he was no longer a member of the law firm, or that the law firm had dissolved. And I don't know, the clerk did send out the notice of the hearing, or a copy of the hearing notice to Mr. Losi. I saw that that was done, but I think there is a reasonable prospect that perhaps the property owner did not get that notice. And if we could endeavor to see if we can provide that notice, I think that, again, all we're trying to do is ensure that there has been due process here.
Well, I'm going to move with that. I think we need to continue. I know that next week is a budget hearing.
June
and
4th would be the next one.
When?
June 4th.
June 4th. Let's continue till June 4th.
Second.
Motion and second to continue the hearing at an item. Yes, Supervisor
Mr.
Lewis.
Chairman, we said the name of the LLC, but what are the names of the parties who own that LLC, so we're aware of those
Staff will be
when they go to
Counsel?
call us?
Mr. and Mrs. Marco.
Mr.
It is
Chairman.
Alfred Marco and Catherine Marco, husband and wife.
How do you spell it?
Okay.
Yeah.
M-A-R-K-O-C-O.
M-A-R-C-O.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion is on the continuance of item number 13 to the June 4th Board of Supervisors meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Franchise license permits, item 14 and 15.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Lewis.
I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on items 14 and 15 and move to approve the fireworks permit and extension of premises/patio permit.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and approve item number 14 and 15. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Items 16 and 17 will be heard together. However, a separate motion will be required for each of those. Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, before you is a two-part request. The first part, item 16, is a request to modify a rezoning condition associated with C098441 International Wildlife Gates Pass Road rezoning. The second part of the request is item 17, which is a plat note waiver of Paseo Montana subdivision that indicated the setback within Lot 1. The request stems from the construction of a guest house within an 85-foot setback at 19 feet on Lot 1 of Paseo Montana subdivision. During the construction of the guest house, we received a complaint regarding the guest house. Through the violation process, it was determined that variances were required and the original site plan submitted was inaccurate. The applicant went before the Board of Adjustment requesting several variances that include a side yard setback, separate driveway access to the guest house, separate electrical pedestal. Essentially, the Board of Adjustment denied the variances. The applicant then appealed to Superior Court. The Superior Court granted them some of the variances. They are now before you asking for a modification of condition number 18 of the referenced rezoning that established an 85-foot setback from the edge of the right-of-way into Lot 1. The guest house is, for the most part, constructed, but the permit has not been final to date, and because these issues have not been resolved. Supermajority protest has been triggered in regards to the modification of rezoning conditions. As of May 1st, staff had received petitions with at least 101 signatures 3 emails and 7 letters of opposition to the modification and rezoning condition and plat note waiver. Additional letters did come in since that date. And again, want to reiterate, supermajority has been triggered on item number 16. Staff had recommended approval of CO 98441, which is before you, item 16, subject to standard and special conditions. The conditions recommended were proposed to help mitigate the visual impact of the guest house. Staff is not recommending conditions for item 17, the plat note modification. Simply staff had recommended approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, there was a significant amount of neighbor opposition. At the end, the commission did recommend denial to the substantial change request. Staff is not in any way disputing the recommendation, and the subject property lies outside the Mavine Marie Behan Conservation Land System. And that concludes staff's report.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Carroll.
Chris, could you explain to us the opposition? It has to be, the percentage is how much opposition within 300 feet to trigger what is a supermajority vote, which they'll need 4 out of 5 members of this board to support their.
That's correct. There's 2 numbers we look at. One is percent of property area. And for that number, we have within 300 feet, 29.94% of property area has protested the request. Mm-hmm. By ownership, the number's higher. We're at 46.2%. So both those numbers need to be over 20% to trigger it. Both are well over the 20%.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no further questions from the board, we do have a number of speakers. I'm going to ask each of you, please identify yourself for the records, and you'll have 3 minutes. As there are a number of speakers, I'm going to ask you, please keep as close to 3 minutes as you can, or shorter. Donald Faulkner, please come up, identify yourself for the record. Donald Faulkner? Oh, there you are. I'm sorry. Good morning.
My name is Donald Faulkner. My address is 4940 West Monte Carlo Drive, Tucson, Arizona. I'm a resident of Paseo, Montana. My wife and I are opposed to granting the rezoning and substantial change, which would negate the required 85-foot setback. We want the 85-foot setback in force. My wife, along with 18 other lot owners in Paseo, Montana, have signed a petition that would keep the setback at 85 feet. The 19 lots are approximately 80% of the lots in Paseo, Montana. There being 25 lots in that subdivision. My wife and I also object to the staff's recommendation to keep the residence as is, even making it more a single-family unit by saying it is okay to have separate utilities, including a septic system. Paseo, Montana has city underground sewer system. The staff also, which they cannot hook up. The staff also recommends covenants and restrictions to this residence. Paseo, Montana already has covenants and restrictions that Mr. Timmons has not adhered to. Why would you believe Mr. Timmons would adhere to additional covenants and restrictions, or anybody else for that matter, now or in the future? You are voting on a change that will not only impact the residents of Paseo, Montana, but will impact 3 icons that are within the notification area. Gates Pass Scenic Route, which is Timmons' house is on, Saguaro National Park West, and the International Wildlife Museum. Thousands of people visit this area every year. This area is a national treasure. It's unique. It's only unique to here. This is visited by people from all over the world. People know the International Wildlife Museum. They know Saguaro West. The requirement for a couple of mesquite trees and jojoba bushes that would not, that's what they're recommending, the staff, or even Mr. Timmons, would not obscure the dwelling from view. This is we live on a hill, and everybody's can look down on this. We also find it ironic that Mr. Timmons lives on over an acre with his home extremely close to the street, and in only one corner of this acre-plus lot. He could have, and still can, build his own or move the guest house to the back of his lot by this pool, thereby complying with the county and the CCNR rules. I find it, I don't have enough time, but he has testified in the past on certain occasions, and I have proof that his testimony was not in fact true. There's other testimony in your, I'm out of time. Thank you for your time.
Excuse me, sir. I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Miller.
I have a question for you. You said that he has a septic system for this guest house. He is not hooked up to.
I'm
the
sorry,
sewer?
I cannot hear you.
You said that he had a septic system for this guest house.
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
But the staff would approve a septic system instead of hooking up to the city sewer. The city sewer is almost where he built it. If you ever saw it, it's almost impossible to get any kind of stuff to it. It all has to be separate, which makes it a separate home.
I have a question for staff then. Is this going to require a septic hookup?
Chairman of the board, Supervisor Miller, if sewer is not available and he wanted to add a septic tank, he would have to meet all applicable requirements, but that wouldn't make it a separate dwelling unit. It still would be classified as a guest house.
But my understanding is if you're within so many feet of a sewer hookup, you have to hook up to it. Is this outside of that limit?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, this issue was not raised, but if I recall, they are connecting to sewer, and I believe the applicant certainly can address that.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Elias?
my chance to finish up his comments. He was interrupted several times. I'd like to hear what he had to say.
When was he interrupted?
He didn't get a chance to finish his comments because he interrupted himself, and then we had some questions from a member. I'd just like to have him come back and finish his statement.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Elias seems to have a problem with everything that I ask, and I will tell you this, it's getting a little tedious, and I think we need to have more order in these meetings. He's been carrying on conversations on the sideboard, and when people are talking and it's very difficult to hear, and then I'm insulted every time I ask a question. And I think you need to have more order in the meetings. I would request that you do that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I have my constituent finish his comment, please?
I'll give you 30 more seconds, but please.
I don't think there's a problem at all. My behavior is not.
I understand that, Mr. Elias. I have a big stack of speakers, and if I do it for one, I'm going to have to do it for every single one of them, Mr. Supervisor Elias.
Thank you. Mr. Timmons testified at a hearing on October 7, 2010 that the electrical service box was already there, quote, was already there before construction started. Construction began in January 2010. He made an effort to discredit me at that hearing, volunteering that he did not put the electric service in. It was already there. By Exhibit 2 from which you have there by Mr. Timmons' attorney, it shows that Mr. Timmons petitioned TEP for a separate electrical service on March 9th after the construction began. Also on June 9th, an aerial photo, Exhibit 7.
Mr. Faulkner, I've given you an additional 30 seconds. If you could please summarize.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I'm going to call on Mr. Michael Addis. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Members of the board, my name is Michael Addis. I graduated from Boston College Law School in 1970, practiced law in Tucson for 30 years. And survived. Okay. The plan that was approved here, the only plan that was approved here, was approved on February 1st, 2010. That plan shows a 45-foot right-of-way from the edge of Gates Pass Road, plus an 85-foot setback from the boundary of the property. The plat map from 1985 clearly shows the 45-foot right-of-way. I'd like to refer you, I know you have 151 pages in your documents here. There's a lot of stuff. But there's a 4 or 5 page set of materials submitted by a woman named Wendy Beardsley. And she clearly shows with color outlining, which is how you can find these documents, the 45-foot right-of-way and the 85-foot that's demonstrated in the only approved plan that the county approved. Now, what you might need, and I'm not willing to, let this go, but in order to see this, I had to borrow my mother's magnifying glass, okay? On the side of the approved plans, you will see reference to the fact that the contractor is responsible for contacting in writing development services regarding any discrepancies in the drawings prior to executing or fabricating that area of work. You will see right below that no deviation from the approved drawing shall be permitted without the written approval of the owner and building official. I know we have a lawyer in this case. I assume he's here. I'm not sure who he is. And he went to that law school up north. I mean, he works for a law firm up north. But Judge Harrington, who's a Superior Court judge who ruled in this case, only ruled on the question of separate electrical meters, period, end of story, okay? In denying, he found that the Board of Adjustment didn't have before it any request for a variance on this setback issue. So he didn't really rule on that. And if you look at the judge's decision, you will see that he did not rule on that. Mr. Tillman, I'm not sure if it was Mr. Tillman who spoke back here or not from staff, suggests that the board should grant the modification of plat and the zoning variance because, hey, it already looks crummy there because we have the Wildlife Museum. Come on, what kind of rationale is that? We're going to make it look more crummy by letting this stand in violation of what the approved plan says. And then the lawyer says in what...
Mr. Addis, if you could please summarize. You've already exceeded your 3 minutes.
All right, I'm getting right to the end right now. Okay. Former Chief Judge Tom Meehan would frequently say that the shotgun approach sometimes wins a trial. We have the lawyer saying double jeopardy, res judicata, collateral estoppel. Double jeopardy only applies to criminal cases. Res judicata, which is our legal Latin, only applies where the issue has actually been debated and solved. I told you Judge Harrington never even ruled on the issue. Collateral estoppel is the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I call Roger Carpenter. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
I hope you give your mom back her magnifying glass.
Hey, too late for that.
My name is Roger Carpenter. I live at 1124 North Community Oeste, about a quarter mile from the property in question. I'm speaking today as a member of the board of the Gates Pass Area Neighborhood Association. If you have ever visited the Timmons property, you will immediately see that there is no way to build an additional building on the property south of the residence while honoring the 85-foot setback from the south property line. A significant arroyo across the lot prevents building closer to the residence. So, how do you get a building permit? As Ms. Beardsley has elegantly demonstrated in her memo to the board, Mr. Timmons and his builder submitted a distorted site plan that is not to scale, omits significant navigational aids, and includes the Gates Pass right-of-way as part of his own property. No wonder the circumstances are confusing, but he did build the guest house 85 foot from the edge of the asphalt on Gates Pass Road, ignoring the 45-foot right-of-way between the asphalt and his true property line. Then he installed a kitchen stove, although prohibited under guest house regulations at the time. He installed a separate electric meter and driveway though we were told by county staff at the Board of Adjustment meeting 2 years ago that he had been told neither was permitted. He was cited for having occupants in the structure when it had not passed final inspection, and it still has not received final inspection. On October 2010, the hearing officer instructed Mr. Timmons to remove the driveway and electrical panel for which he had received citations in August. On page 24 of the memo prepared by county staff for this hearing, Mr. Timmons' attorney writes on February of this year, Mr. Timmons has done everything possible to comply with the requirements to remove the driveway. This is sheer nonsense. The driveway is there in the same condition as it was when it was built in 2010. Mr. Timmons' pattern has been to try something until he is caught, either by the county or by the neighbors. And only then does he seek normal routes to solve the complaint, some of which he should have pursued before he ever proceeded with the next step in his process. At the Board of Adjustment hearing over 2 years ago, county staff recommended against the variances Mr. Timmons was seeking, in part because he did not build a structure where he said he would. Now county staff argues in his favor. Why the different judgment in the matter? Is it because county staff believes that the Wildlife Museum so dominates the landscape that the guest house doesn't matter? If so, I strongly object. I do not think that an aesthetic judgment should determine whether a structure has been built in the wrong place. And there are lots of people here today who have an equally valid and completely different aesthetic judgment about this matter. Today we ask that you turn down Mr. Timmons' request for the zoning change, but you should go beyond that to finally put this matter to rest. We ask that you vote to order the removal of this building. We are sure that you are aware that whichever way you vote, you will be setting a precedent. Please vote for the neighbors and for the visitors to Tucson Mountain Park. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Next.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Carroll.
Appreciate Mr. Carpenter bringing this up. I'd like to ask staff a question. What are...
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
No, not Mr.
questions just for
Carpenter.
staff.
Staff. Thank you, though. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comment. It brought up an item that I thought I'd ask for clarification over. Today's vote is regarding Mr. Poirier. If this would be denied, it does not call for the removal of the house.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Carroll, if the board denies the request, then this building would be in violation of the zoning code, and as a result, an outcome probably would be the county making an effort to have the building removed through the enforcement process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to call on Barbara Lucero. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, you can pull it down and go to the other side.
That's pretty, okay. Hello, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity of addressing this issue.
Please identify yourself for the record.
Barbara Lucero. I reside at 4870 West McElroy with the Timmons family. I am a native of Tucson. I was born and raised here. But for 23 years, I was an aide to the mayor and city council. I worked my first political appointment was with Roy Laus. My last was with Karen Ulick. I worked very hard for the political assignments that I had, representing the constituency that I represented with my political appointment. My statements will be in that I ask that staff continue, or hopefully continue, to honor and approve this variance based on the facts that have been presented, the stacks and stacks of information that have been provided. Mr. Timmons, unlike some of the things that are being said about him, did not build, built based on all the permits that were approved every step of the way. It's unfortunate that you can get a permit, getting approval for any phase of the building, and then later on to find out that it was incorrect. Some of the things that are being said about him are blatant lies. It's unfortunate. I mean, this should be settled, let it end, and the building, I mean, it's just, I mean, I could go on and on about some of the things that have been done that are unfair here. And one of the things that does concern me very, very much is two very strong political influences not only signed the petition, but also filed it. I just hope that the Board of Supervisors here make the right decision, a decision based on facts, a decision based on information that has been provided to you, and that it not be one based on a political decision. Thank you for listening, and I just ask that all the information that has been provided, all the statements that have been issued by his attorney, I just reiterate the fact that he did build, with the good intentions from the beginning to the very end, and the things that are being said of him are not true. He took me out of a homeless situation and took me in and helped me. The whole purpose of the house initially and still continues to be, to help those that were in need of a situation. It is ugly right now, but it's not completed. He stopped building and stopped addressing the issues, when all these problems started. It can be something very, very beautiful if the neighbors would just work together and see it be completed and stop the bickering. Let it be done. And let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call on Barbara Fleming. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Barbara Fleming. I live at 846 North Camino de Oeste, at the corner of Camino de Oeste and West Speedway, about a third of a mile from this property in question. I'm also the president of the Gates Pass Area Neighborhood Association this year, and I'm here representing our 160 some odd members. I'd just like to state my support for all that's been said prior in opposition to this guest house. But I'd like to address my comments specifically to why he should not be granted his final inspection, but this structure be torn down. It's too close as it is to one of the last remaining thoroughfares of the county to be able to be designated a gateway to Tucson, and a scenic one at that. I believe the structure should be torn down, the building envelope revegetated, and the site restored in keeping with the mandates of the scenic gateway overlay that the county has adopted. As it now is, it's an eyesore, completely negating any scenic value to Gates Pass Road or that scenic corridor. Now, it's currently unpleasant to look at, as some of us have said, but its appearance will, unfortunately, I believe, inevitably deteriorate even further if it is not allowed to be contained as an occupancy facility. Without the possibility of occupancy or rental, Mr. Timmons really has very little incentive for keeping up the building or the building site. And with not a very weak homeowners association to enforce upkeep, we could probably expect weeds and debris, vandalism, graffiti, vagrants, not exactly things that help maintain the area's property values. Requiring Mr. Timmons to remove all trace of the building, U.S. County Supervisors will be sending a clear and unequivocal message to homeowners all over the county that county code is not something to ignore simply because, as some people have said, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. Many of us are interested in the outcome of this hearing because we still own property that is designated for future building, and we're taking notes. I think that for no other reason than to avoid setting a dangerous precedent, this Board of Supervisors should require the removal of this violating structure and complete restitution of the property. Allowing the building to remain just opens the floodgates for the museum, for example, Wildlife Museum, to expand their parking lot into the setback, or to put up new construction in violation of the setback requirements also. This could go on for years, or you guys could make it right now. We urge you to agree with the unanimous decision of the Board of Adjustment 2 years ago requiring that the structure be removed, and the overwhelming majority of the neighbors most affected by this issue, and deny the plat note waiver. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call on Teresa Marson. Please come up, identify yourself for the record. And you have 3 minutes. And just by way of reminder, while I do appreciate expressions of support or opposition, please, this is not the appropriate venue.
Hi, I'm Teresa Morrison. I lived with Bill and Susan Timmons in the time of 2009 up until mid-2011. I had fractured my foot, and they offered their home for my recovery since I'm not from here. When initial talk about the guest house was brought up, it was brought because as a place for a family to come and stay at, not as a rental property. The Timmons family is from Florida. They do come and visit. They also have multiple friends that come and visit out of town, and it was built as a guest residency, not as a rental property. And it is kind of ugly right now. I mean, they haven't finished it, but there was no way that this was built as an extra income for the Timmons family.
Are there any questions? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Carroll.
The Timmons are not in the hearing room, is that correct?
Yes, they are.
They are? They will be able to speak? Okay,
They'll be the
thank
last
you.
to speak.
They keep being referred to, I wanted to see, thank you.
Robert Dunnigan. Please come up, sir. Identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. My name is Robert Dunnigan. I live at 4950 West McElroy Drive in the neighborhood of Paseo, Montana, a neighbor of Mr. Timmons. Mr. Timmons built that house in record time, I would say in less than a month. After he built it, he came around and asked me to sign a petition for variance, and I refused. I told him, you never consulted anybody that I know of in the community beforehand. The house is about half the size that we would require in the CC&R. It was allegedly built for his mother. She died, and somehow a bunch of young women were living in it. They weren't the best of neighbors. I've had people, I try to walk, I'm supposed to walk as much as possible. I try to walk up on Gates Pass, and I've had several people stop me and say, what is that house? How was it ever built? Is it a storage house for the county Department of Public Works or traffic people? I said, no, it was built without our approval, and we would like to have it torn down. I know it affects property values for the rest of us in the community. It's an eyesore, and it really should be torn down. It was never legal, and I hope you refuse his variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunnigan.
Ms.
Supervisor Miller.
I have a question for staff. What % complete is this building?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, we'd have to estimate it's 95% complete. I mean, there could still be some exterior work to be completed, but for the most part, what we see is what we're going to get.
And since I haven't seen any pictures, does it match the character of the home that is on the property already, or the character of the neighborhood?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, that's a fairly subjective question. I think we've heard from a lot of neighbors throughout the process it does not. If I would have to make a statement on it right now, I'd say in its current state it does not, but we've not seen the guest house, again, completed. There might be some exterior work, maybe with some landscaping it could help, but right now it is pretty much a box, a very boxy structure.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker will be Ann Anovitz. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Ann Anovitz, 4960 West Monte Carlo. I'm not against Mr. Timmons. I like him. He likes dogs, and and so I have nothing against that at all. However, I believe that this place was built in the wrong location. It could have been built to the southeast of his, the northeast of his property, and his original driveway could have been used by simply putting it to one side of his pool to get to this house. The way it is now, it is effectively a second house on his property. It does not have its own sewer. It does not have its own electric connection. It does not have anything that the CCNRs call for, which says, our CCNRs say that it should be no more than 19 or 20 feet from the main house, which it is. It says that it should have a walkway connecting it, which it does not have. It should have the same driveway as the current house, which it does not have. And I feel that this little box does not belong where it was located.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call Lynn Bracker. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name's Lynn Bracker. I'm at 650 North Via Roma, which is in the next development west of Paseo, Montana, on the north side of the road, Mountain Garden Estates. I've lived there since 1980. I do know my neighborhood. I do know my neighbors. I do want to say that if you vote yes to this zoning request, rezoning request, you're going to be setting a dangerous precedent, because I know 2, maybe 3 of my neighbors are going to follow suit, build first, then come to you folks, ask forgiveness. So I just don't want to see that. I would say that I don't know about the, well, I would say that I attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting a couple months ago now, I guess, and they basically decided that this was not a guest house. It didn't meet the requirements of a guest house, that the owner had basically subdivided his property. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call on Carson Ebby. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Good morning.
My name is Carlson Eby, 11771 North First Avenue, Oro Valley. I am the contractor that built the building in question. 31 years as a contractor, not all in the state of Arizona, but in Maryland as well. This, I'm going to deal with fact instead of some conjecture and everything else that you've heard up here. We did everything that was supposed to be done in order to do this project right. We went down to the building and safety, we got the plans approved. We went ahead, and in front of me is a list of inspections, as opposed to what some people may think. It took a month to build this. Our first inspection was in the very beginning of February. Our last inspection was in the middle of June. So it took quite a long time. We had a lot of difficulties with rock and all that good stuff to deal with there. We basically, from the very beginning, had no interaction with the public. Nobody came up to me while I was building. Nobody did anything to say anything about this until almost the very end of the project. And it wasn't all negative when they came up. They're saying, well, what are you guys doing? What are you building? What is this? You know, it's a little casita is what it is. And we went through all of that. To kind of put in play here what we're dealing with, The county has been there every step of the way with every approval of every inspection. And the very first one, I might add, is the excavation, the layout, the rebar, and the zoning. That's the big one right there. We had some confusion on the plans. The inspector that came out, which his name was Jerry, G21, I believe it is, he measured the building off to where we were at. That is part of his job to do that. So we got approval. If there had been any problems at that particular point, anything brought up about where it was, well, it's easy enough to move. No concrete has been poured. There's no problem with doing any adjustments or moving. We find out later on down the line, basically 4 months or 5 months later, once complaints start coming in, that the plans are a little bit skewed in their actual dimension, and we end up with 19 feet difference. Basically the size from the end of yours to the end of there. That's the amount of distance that we're encroached upon. Realistically, if we moved it 19 feet, I'm sure that the public would have some other problem to deal with it. We tried our best the whole way through to do everything humanly possible to make sure everybody was happy, to make sure every bit of this was done by absolute county standards. When somebody talks about the electric in the property there, that it has its own meter, there was a junction box there, and TEP came out and decided this is the best place to put the junction box or the meter system because it's too far from the original house. So my time is almost up, but if there's any questions, please let me know.
Is there any
Mr.
questions from
Chairman?
the board? Supervisor Miller.
Yes, you mentioned that it was only 19 feet.
Yes.
My understanding from reading the documentation is that it was supposed to be 85 feet, and it's 66 feet out of where it should be. Is that correct?
If I'm not mistaken, we had gotten passed on the scenic route, so we're actually 19 feet out from where we need to be. But I'm not 100% on that at this particular point.
Okay, maybe I should address it to staff.
I believe staff has an answer to that point.
Could you
Staff?
please answer?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, the required setback is 85 foot. The site plan that started everything submitted to the county from the applicant showed they're going to meet the 85-foot setback, but in reality they're at about 19 feet. So they're off by close to 55 feet, or 65 feet.
Mr. Chairman.
Chris,
Is the question?
excuse me, Mr. Chairman, could I just add one more thing? Chris, just for clarification purposes, isn't in fact that 85-foot setback created by the fact that it's also a scenic roadway?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Elias, certainly the rezoning condition was influenced by that, but it was a discrete 85-foot setback that was packaged with that rezoning, but there was a recognition of the location, correct?
Okay.
On the scenic
Okay.
route, yes.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Supervisor Carroll.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Elias has cleared up my question, but I do want to ask maybe the applicant or Mr. Eby, what caused that adjustment? What went from the original 85 to 66 or whatever you want to say? What happened on the ground there that forced you to adjust, or was it just a simple error?
Well, there was, it's quite an interesting spot. There's a huge, deep wash that basically runs right beside the road. There's lots of vegetation on that part of the road, so we were trying to get all of our sizing off of that. And obviously, with the 85 feet, we did get 85 feet, but not from the actual scenic right-of-way area. And even the inspector, when he came out, and we had gone through this at that particular time, we took the tape measure, we all measured together to make sure that we were in compliance, and he felt like we were in compliance at the time.
The inspector did?
The inspector, yes. And that's here on the permit itself, signed.
In reading the background material, Mr. Timmons is involved in the GIS business?
Yeah.
Did he provide you with the proper backup technology that you needed to see that
No, we
site
had
plan?
the original plans from his house build, and we took that to the county as well as the new plans for the casita to find that. And then they pulled up the plat of the area, and we worked off of that together down at Building and Safety.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. I do have a question for staff. He did mention that an inspector came and measured that off. What do we have in terms of that information?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that that's not exactly accurate. The site plan, again, that was submitted showed they met the setback. We then did an in-office review of this project based on that site plan. We then, in the in-office review, we issued the permit, which then triggers the ability for the applicant to call out inspectors. Our building inspectors, in practice, they don't measure setbacks. They look at what was presented, looked at what was approved generally, but they're out there inspecting what they're called out to inspect. So, you know, if the first stage is putting in the slab, they're really focused on the slab. They're looking at the context of the site, but they are not measuring the setback. We rely on what is submitted.
Okay. Other questions? All right. Next speaker is Judith Meyer. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm representing the Tucson Mountains Association today, which is a party in interest named in the zoning provisions for this development. The neighbors of the project have been eloquent. I'm not going to repeat what I've heard them say so well to you. But the real question I'm going to focus on is whether you should break a solemn promise to the community based on a possible error by some county official relying upon misrepresented drawings. This is incompatible with a scenic corridor. This is no ordinary lot. It sits right on a high knoll in a prominent place on probably the most beautiful approach to our Tucson community. When the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan was drafted, it made the point, great communities are no accident. They're born out of their natural strength and beauty and have a deep respect for the ecology, history, culture, and diversity. They're inspired by the vision of residents drawn to them, brought to maturity through hard work and investment, and they survive because of compromise and consensus. In a sense, they achieve balance, and that's the balance, the precise balance at issue here. At the heart of the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan is that balance. It's at the heart of our zoning code, which was shaped by a great deal of public review and discussion. Our community values are incorporated into that code, including our special respect for our most scenic corridors, which is based upon a compromise between the need to develop homes and the need to protect our natural resources and the scenic beauty of our region. That's why the Tucson Mountains North Policy Statement requires all structures to be sited and landscaped to minimize negative visual impacts. The balance struck in 1984 when we rezoned this to CR1 was to have a substantial setback. That was a promise made to our community. Should you break it based on faulty drawings that were submitted by the party that had the obligation to submit accurate drawings and a possible mistake that was made as a result? I remind you that under our zoning code and under general policy, a self-inflicted injury does not constitute hardship. Under the zoning laws, it's right in our code. If you have done this yourself, you can't claim a hardship. We ask that you deny the rezoning request and require that this building be torn down. I would also point out no judge has directed this board to overcome our zoning code and our community values to approve a rezoning at this point, for Mr. Timmons' benefit. For all of these reasons, we need to get beyond the distracting hyperbole and any accusations against anybody else and just say, what are our real values here? Why would we approve or deny this? Let's not give forgiveness when somebody has done what never would have been allowed in the first place. Yes, Your Honor.
No, but I was going to ask you to summarize.
I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. May. Now, I'm in a little bit of a quandary. I was going to let the applicant speak a little longer, but I see I've got a card both from his attorney and from Mr. Timmons would you like to each speak for 3 minutes, or would you like to have your representative speak for 5? All right, what I'll do then is so that you both have an opportunity, I'm going to give each of you 3 minutes, because I was going to give the applicant 5, but considering that both of you wish to speak, I'll go ahead and give you each 3 minutes. Okay? Mr. Callahan, Jesse Callahan, please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, this is Jesse Callahan. I'm an attorney with Luce Brown and Associates. Contrary to what was said about my firm earlier, we actually do work out of Tucson. We have an office up on River, formerly used to be on Sunrise. With respect to the issues that were raised, there's several things that have been put before the board. They're complaints, and they're complaints about primarily 2 things. Complaints about Timmons' intent, whether he acted in good faith or bad faith, and complaints about the aesthetics of the property. With respect to Timmons' intent, this isn't a trial about his character. There have been a lot of attacks on his character. I'd be happy to have a trial on Mr. Timmons' character, but that's not what's at issue today. The history of this project and the permits and the inspections that were issued conclusively demonstrate that Timmons sought permission at every corner, at every avenue, and he was granted that permission. Inspectors visited the property and specifically signed off on the zoning. There's no question that if he could have moved the structure a few feet to save all of this hassle and heartache, he would have done it. He didn't do this so that he could violate the zoning code. He applied for the permit so that he could be in compliance, and he believed he had that permission and approval. And unfortunately, subsequently, after the guest house was almost done, but still incomplete, and specifically incomplete as to the aesthetics of the guest house, some people started complaining, and he was cited. He was cited specifically with the 85-foot setback non-adherence to recorded plat map, and that citation was dismissed by hearing officer Jim Portner. We went to the Board of Supervisors to get variance for one thing, the side yard setback. We also asked for a variance for the electrical panel. We didn't want a variance for the driveway. We agreed with the Department of Transportation, we'll pull out the driveway. Board of Adjustment, just like I'm here before you today, said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to deny all your variance requests because you violate the 85 feet. But that was actually dismissed by a hearing officer, and that wasn't an issue before the Board of Adjustment. Timmons appealed that ruling from the Board of Adjustment, and a trial was held on this matter before the Honorable Charles Harrington. Judge Harrington specifically held it would constitute waste to force Timmons to tear down the structure that he spent $130,000 to build. And Mr. Eby's 100% accurate. If this structure is moved over so that it's in compliance with 85 feet, people are still going to complain about it if it looks the way it does today. Once it's complete with the staff recommendations, this structure will not be an eyesore. It's right next to a parking lot that every time I've driven by there has been vacant. That's the eyesore. This guest house will be shrouded in natural native vegetation. People won't even see it when it's done. Right now there's a lot of uproar because it's an incomplete construction project that sits right next to an empty parking lot. And Mr. Timmons has been the victim of what I see to be mob rule in his neighborhood. Everybody has gone around signing petitions. They formed an HOA for the sole purpose of forcing the raising of Mr. Timmons' guest house. That's what's happening here today. It's more mob rule. But the sound principles of what's right, what's fair, and what's just, and what's legal requires that this board grant Mr. Timmons the relief he's requesting, and that's all we ask for today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. William Timmons, please identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm William Timmons. I reside at 4870 West McElroy Drive. One of the things that kind of jumped out at me is one of the commissioners mentioned that they hadn't seen a picture of what the structure was going to look like when it was completed. This kind of leads me to believe that maybe the materials that have been submitted for your review haven't been reviewed properly, because one of the items that was submitted was a drawing of what the house was going to look like, also drawings about the type of vegetation that would be there to mitigate it. When Carlson Eby made reference to the original drawing files from my house that were taken in, that's what these are here, and these are copies of those original files. And at the same time, all that was available for review were the known survey points to the north of the property. The complete survey had not been done. Chuck Howard of the Planning Review Board went and printed out a very small section of the plat note waiver, which was submitted to, at the first hearing, to Mr. Portner. And the county advised my contractor that there was a 1-foot no access from the road, and then there was a 85-foot setback from there. So that's where Mr. Carlson did go and build. And contrary to what the staff just mentioned in regards to the property being measured, when Gerald Monson came out as the inspector, he did measure the distance from the road to where the structure sits. I am an expert in geographical information systems, and I went and got some advice from various county people in how to determine whether or not the structure was built in the location where it was said it was going to be built. And so I did an overlay of the site plan on top of the requested survey that came about probably in 2011, over a year after this happened. In regards to my neighbors saying I didn't take the time to work with them, one of the items submitted to you was my review with the remaining members of the Architecture Review Committee, Elmer and Marcella Smith, who live next door to me, where they advised me, and also have in your packet, that they approved of the location. Also, I went and contacted Mr. Giaschetti, who was the architect who was responsible for review. And Mr. Giaschetti also said that he's no longer reviewing them, and he had no objection to the structure. So in reality, we built where we thought we were supposed to build. I have one gentleman there's one letter that was sent in, and he basically said that he contacted me and my contractor when we were putting if you read through all these things, that he contacted myself and the contractor when we were moving the boulders.
Mr. Timmons, I'm going to ask you to summarize, please.
I think we need to request a continuance of the hearing until you folks have adequately reviewed the material that's in front of you. If you haven't read through and seen all the things that are objections to what the neighbors have said, because 26 violations of CC&Rs, which just weren't there. I'm sure you looked at that as well. So I'm requesting at this point a continuance of this, so that you may adequately review the material that's been submitted to you.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Carroll.
I don't have a comment about the continuance, but the photos that you showed us, Mr. Timmons, we certainly do have Exhibit 4 is your requested rendition for the neighbors, and Exhibit 8 is that roadway photo that you flashed at us. But we do have a large backup information. There's no, I think, limit of what we were provided by staff compared to what you furnished. I just want to assure you that we have everything from petitions all the way to site plans. The only thing you've added that we didn't have are these two exhibits. So thanks very much for your interest in what we get as background material. I can assure you that we have what you thought we did not. And
it was just stated that there was no rendering of what the property would look like when it was completed. One of the staff members, one of the board had mentioned that.
Really? Mr. Chairman, I was looking for a photograph.
That's fine. I'll yield.
Okay, Supervisor Miller.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I was just looking for a photograph of what is existing. That is all I was asking for. I've reviewed all of these materials and read through them. Thank you.
And I have, I would thought I was going to be given time today to refute all the statements that were made, and I realized that would take a half an hour or more, not 3 minutes. And there were statements made as to the drawings that one person thought that we had original drawings from 2010 that showed the structure where it was, whereas I have, I guess I need to cut this
I would
off.
say
I'm sorry.
if the board has any questions for us, we'd be happy to address.
Yes, please.
Are there other questions from the board? All right, thank you. Now, I did receive a speaker card. Generally, by tradition and custom, we've always let the applicant go last. Does the board wish to hear the last speaker?
Mr. Van Heinigen.
I would say we should go ahead and hear that last speaker, and if there's something very specific that either Mr. Timmons' counsel or he wants to respond to, we should allow him to quickly respond to that.
I think that's fair.
Just as
Okay.
a matter of fairness.
Is that fair?
Thank you, Supervisor.
Okay. Mr. Keith Van Heineken, please come up, sir. Identify yourself for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Keith Van Heineken. I'm a Tucson resident. I didn't intend to speak on this, but I have to. I've been a land surveyor most of my life. Anyone with GIS experience does not go, well, I just assumed it's from the pavement. The man knows what a right-of-way is. He knows what setbacks are. For him to say, oh, we just pulled it from the road, means he's an incompetent buffoon.
Let's, Mr. Van Heineken.
No, this is ridiculous. You people are all playing a game, and it's not.
We understand that.
The thing is, hey, you've got a county employee that obviously needs to be reprimanded or fired. You've got a man who knows he's building illegally, and it gets allowed. I could probably drive down this road myself and say, wow, that stands out, couldn't I? Maybe I'll do that later today. But no, you should not allow this building to stand. That is one of the most beautiful areas in this entire county. I know when my family came here from Florida, they wanted to see it. But that's all I've got to say on this. This, what I've already heard, is ridiculous. And for a man to say, oh, it's mob rule, he doesn't know what mob rule is, apparently. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Van Heineken. Any questions from the board? If there's no questions, what's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Elias.
I move that we close the hearing on...
if you could hold on just a moment, Council.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I did see that you had previously
I'm
offered
sorry.
a response for the one party.
You want to respond to that, Mr. Timmons? There's no need to respond to the name calling that went on. We all know that that was out of order.
Okay, so I am an expert in geographical information systems. I was in basically either in Europe or mostly in the Caribbean when this went on. I submitted a sketch of what I wanted the structure to look like, not where it was going to be located, to my contractor. My contractor relied on the county and for the placement of the structure. If I had thought that I'm not a site plan review person. I work with remote sensing, aerial imagery, unmanned aerial vehicles, vehicle tracking. I'm a geographer. True, if I had been here, I probably would have caught the errors. It was admitted in the Superior Court by county staff that they never should have approved the plans because the porch in the original drawings was shown within the 85-foot setback and they would have questioned it. It was also admitted during the Board of Adjustment hearing that the county should have advised my contractor to complete a survey, not have the survey done over a year and a half after the structure was in place. And I do resent being called a buffoon.
And Mr. Timmons, I apologize for that. This board doesn't...
Pardon me?
If you could please...
This is all out of order.
That's enough. Both of you,
Thank you,
please.
Mr. Timmons. Appreciate you responding. Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Elias.
In the matter of item 16, case number C09-84-41, International Wildlife Gates Pass Road rezoning, I'd like to close the public hearing and deny the modification of rezoning condition and urge that really we look at removing this building so that we can go on with life and people in the Tucson Mountains recognize that we respect the rule of law.
Second.
Motion and second to deny item number 16, C09-84-41, International Life Gates Pass Road rezoning. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. And by the way, that includes close the public hearing. Ayes have it. Moving on to item 17, Supervisor. 5-0. Supervisor Elias.
Mr. Chairman, did I, what did he say? Oh, item 17. I'll go ahead and move the item. Oh, that's right. We had two items here that we had. I apologize, folks. I missed
You
that
can
item.
wait- you can
We're
wait if
going
you
to
want.
have to move in the case number CO12-84-109, Paseo Montano, lots 1 through 25, close the public hearing and deny the plat note waiver.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing on item number 17, CO 12-84-109, Paseo Montaña lots 1 through 25, and deny the plat note waiver. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. By a vote 5-0, motion carries. Moving on to transportation traffic ordinance number 2013-28.
Chairman, I'll move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and approve ordinance, item number 18, ordinance number 23-28. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it.
Thank you, everybody.
Why don't we go ahead and take a 10-minute break at this point, and we will return to the sound of the gavel.
Take care. Thank you, Mr.
Call this meeting back to order. We are on the addendum agenda, Board of Supervisors sitting as other boards, Library District Board, item number 4.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Elias.
I'll go ahead and move item 4, which is some revisions to the fines and fees policy for our libraries.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question on this. I just wanted to know if...
I did, you did. I called myself a second.
I wanted to ask, is this just a one-time fee waiver for students that haven't returned books?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Oliver.
And Supervisor Miller, yes, it is. What it is that we inherited a very large carryover delinquency balance when we took over the library system from the city. And what we're trying to do is basically get it down to something that's realistic. So, we've carried this receivable of $3 million plus in the library system, and everyone says, well, go get the cash. Well, there isn't any cash, and so we need to get real about, what is collectible or not. And this is, I think, the library board had a very good suggestion about, really waiving the fees for children in the teen library cards, because right now, they'd be blocked because of a delinquency, and so it's something that's really uncollectible, always has been. So we're just kind of bringing this system up to what it calls standard modern practices.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Carroll.
In the future, what will be, in fact, the policy, and what will you do to encourage, encourage the students to be more prompt on their responsibilities? And is there a chance for community service versus this type of monetary restitution in the future?
Melinda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Supervisor Carroll, and board. The library already has a number of options for students to work off fines if they do accrue fines, but in this case, we would be not charging fines for children's materials. So then if there were materials that were not returned, they will still get overdue notices on any materials not returned, and once those materials accrue the true value up to $50 are turned over to collections. So there would still be some options for children to work off the fines or the fees, I'm sorry, for the materials.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, the motion before us is to approve item number 4 under Library District Board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to Board of Supervisors sitting in regular session. I believe this is the Pima County Health Benefits Trust Board. Mr. Huckleberry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We are recommending the terms of the trust board and to actually make the county representative for a term of 3 years, Alan Bazolmi.
Are there any questions from the board? What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Carroll.
I'd like to move the item and approve.
Item 5A, B, and C. Second.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Elias.
The meetings of the trustees, are they going to be subject to the open meeting laws?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
They will be
Supervisor,
subject to the
yes.
open meeting laws. Okay. That's all. That's fine. Thank you. I just wanted to make that.
Any other questions? If not, the motion before us is on the approval of item 5A, B, and C on the addendum agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item number 6 and resolution
Mr.
number
Chairman?
2013-36. Supervisor Elias.
I'm going to move item 6, including resolution 2013-36.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 6 and resolution number 2013-36. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to contract and award, community services, employment, and
Mr.
training.
Chairman?
Items 7 through 17. Supervisor Elias.
I'm going to move items 7 through 17.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, the motion before us is on the approval of items 7 through 17 on the addendum agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item 18.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 18. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item number 19.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Elias.
I'm going to go ahead and move item 19.
Mr. Chairman?
Is there
I'll
a
second.
Okay. Supervisor Miller.
I just had a question regarding the renewal periods, if they would come back to the board for the renewal periods that are outlined, the 3 5-year renewal periods. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the motion to approve this.
What do you want to amend?
I want to amend the contracts so that they come back to the board for approval for the 3 5-year renewal terms.
It's automatic, isn't it?
I believe that.
It's already a part of
Mr.
the
Ogerberry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, typically, our periods are 5 years, and they always come back to the board. And you'll come back and probably see an annual amendment anyway, more than likely. And so what this really is selecting a contractor based on a request for proposals and qualifications, and we're selecting this particular firm. And it's based on a series of things that have to happen and require further board action in the future. And the one that's been most controversial is the Ajo Solid Waste Services, where I think Supervisor Bronson's heard a lot from her constituents in Ajo about having to pay for solid waste services and a potential alteration, a potential transfer station. None of that is set in concrete. This particular proposal assumes a series of actions that would happen. In Ajo, what will occur is nothing other than simply the actual services will be taken over by the contractor as opposed to county employees. And then we'll go through about a year evaluation period or less to determine whether we keep the landfill open full-time, whether we develop a transfer station, what a fee structure will look like. All of those actions will have to come back and be approved by the board. And so even the fee structures that are going to go in place for Ryan Field or Catalina all have to come back to the board. So this is really the first step in awarding the contract for the RFP. And I think what happened is that, we've been talking about this process for a while, and everybody began to assume that all of these potential outlines of what we believe is the best process were fixed in concrete, and they're not. To establish a fee, to do a different fee, to change a significant operational pattern, for example, Ajo, all will require public meetings, public hearings, and coming back to the board for direction and approval.
Okay. It just had an item in the back that said the first one was a 10-year term and then 3 5-year terms. So thank you for clarifying.
Okay, so you don't need to have an amendment?
Not if we're going to be coming back to approve those.
All right. I believe we've got a motion on the floor and a second to approve item number 19. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item 20 and 21.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor
I'll move
Elias.
items 20 and 21.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 20 and 21.
We already did 21, actually, I think at the beginning of the meeting. So I'll change my motion to just being item 20.
No, we didn't.
When we read it, I was walking up and I seconded.
No.
This is different. I don't
Oh, it's a different one?
Correct.
Oh. Excuse me, then I'll move items 20 and 21.
You already did.
Well, I withdrew it, actually.
Second.
Chair had not recognized the withdrawal. All right, the motion before us is the approval of item 20 and 21. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. I do not have any speaker cards to call to the public. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board, call to the public? I believe we have Mr. Gutman. If you could please come up, identify yourself for the record, and submit your green card.
Thank you. I'm Sheldon Gutman, and I was listening to Mr. Huckleberry on the local radio talk show yesterday. One of his concise, direct comments was about someone's health. I thought he was talking about brain fitness, and if there's a violation of that. And then he referred to the Sheriff's Department on Benson Highway, headquarters there. Aren't they headquartered there, Chuck? Anyway, we see a sheriff's deputy here, always so attentive. And well, if I had something wrong other than proper health fitness, that was the amount of malpractice. Is there a reference to Keno? They have interns from the medical school there. If there's medical malpractice, should there be, which involve perhaps criminal intent? I haven't been feeling well. Sometimes I nod off to sleep a few minutes at a time during the day. But otherwise, I'm still up and running, and but if I was otherwise, I'd like to know about that. Maybe Mr. Huckleberry could clarify what he meant yesterday about if I can't quote exactly what you said, Chuck, but thanks for the heads up on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gutman. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board or call the public? If not, this meeting stands adjourned.